Well, hello everybody! Welcome back to G Bear's Off-Grid Ways, a homestead in the desert. And today we're going to do a little recap on inverters because I got a request from one of my viewers. They wanted to know about the difference between a pure sine wave inverter and a modified sine wave inverter. All right, so here's the deal. If all you're going to be running is some power tools, that's it, just some old-fashioned power tools, not the new battery-powered lithium-ion battery systems. You don't want those to ever go on modified. But if you're just going to be running a table saw and a drill press and things like that, you can use modified sine wave. But if you're going to have anything that has sensitive electronics in it, refrigerators, computers, laptops, cell phones, anything like that, you want a pure sine wave. Okay? Now this needs to be cleaned off because I left the door open and some birds got in here during the heat wave to try to cool down, I guess. Anyway, this Ames unit I've got here is a 4,000 watt, but this is also low frequency series, the LF, and it's also split phase 240 volt, so it's 12240. And what does split phase mean? Well, that means that I've got a 4,000 watt maximum overall on it. But when they split the phases, that would be phase 1 and phase 2. Line 1, line 2. Those are phases. Okay? So when you split those, you're getting 2,000 watts each for each leg. Now these go into a regular breaker panel that you would have like in a house or your garage or something like that. So one side of the panel is phase 1, the other side is phase 2. So I got 4,000 watts total in there if I run a 240 volt system, which I am. If I run something 240 volts, I got 4,000 watts. But if I'm running something 120 volts, I've got 2,000 watts. Okay? So this seems to work for me, but it doesn't mean that'll work for everybody. So let's get to the pure sine wave versus modified sine wave. So it just so happens that Ames put this little symbol on the side here. This little symbol signifies pure sine wave. So the frequencies are going up and down in a nice, smooth, even pattern. Okay? That's pure sine wave. Modified sine wave actually starts going upward, and then at a certain point it stops and levels out and goes straight across, and then it comes down and goes straight across, and it goes up and goes straight across. That's modified, and you don't want to use that, like I said, for any sensitive electronics. It will ruin them. You have to have pure sine wave for your electronics, and most new modern things like refrigerators and that stuff, they all have circuit panels in them. Washing machines for your clothes, dryers for your clothes, they all have now electronic panels inside of them with lots of components like resistors and capacitors and all that stuff. And modified sine wave will damage those. You want to use pure sine wave. Okay, so I hope that explains it for you. Now, if you're not going to need 240 volts AC, I put it in because I have a workshop out there in my shipping containers and garage, and I have some big power tools that could use 240 volts. Also, I was thinking about adding a large air compressor at 240 volts because they're more efficient than a 120 volt. And you can also get more power out of them. So you don't really need to go with 240 volts. You could go with just a 120 volt AC, 50-60 cycle, and it being 120 volts only. You wouldn't have two phases coming out. Oh, it just came on. Must be a little warm in here. You wouldn't have two phases, you'd have one phase. So you would have neutral, one line, and ground. And the ground on this is earth ground. This one here has phase 1, phase 2, and ground. That's the cord that goes out to my generator. When I fire my generator up, I put in 220 volts, or actually 240 volts. 220 is old school electricity. It doesn't get used anymore. It's 120, 240. Everybody nowadays is 120, 240. In the old days, it was 110, 220. And some of the Chinese stuff still comes through at 110, 220. So you want to be careful of what you're buying. If you buy a Chinese inverter, you're going to get 120. You're going to get 110 to 20. And you can see here, this one is 120 to 40 volts AC. Let me get in closer for that. Right there, 120 to 40. If it said 110 to 20, it would be a piece of junk that would not want to work very well with my power tools and my electronics. So you got to make sure that you get a clean, pure sine wave unit. Now I swear by the Ames inverters. These things are really, really built to last, and they are built with precision. So you're not getting dirty sine wave. You're getting pure, clean sine wave, and that's very important. All right, so we got that covered, and that's about all I'm going to do for today on this. Now I got to get in here and do some battery maintenance. I was also asked about battery maintenance. Lead acid battery maintenance means that every now and then you've got to check the water and add distilled water. That's why I buy these bottles of distilled water whenever I can. I find them on sale at 99 cents a gallon. Now, I could make my own water distiller here and use that, but it's a lot of extra work for the amount of time, water I use and the amount of time it takes. So I just, whenever I go to the store, I pick up an extra gallon or two, and I keep usually 2 gallons like this on hand, ready to go whenever I need them. So I also use a little power tool, like a Dremel, with brass wire brushes, and I clean the terminals when they get gummed up like that. And that they get gummed up from gassing. And the gassing is when a battery boils. So one of the things you want to know, and I'll show you that right here, you want spaces between your lead acid batteries, because they do get hot. And if you have them tight together, they just become a giant heater, and they heat each other, and they boil more and cook off more of your acid than necessary. And when the weather is really hot, you're also going to have much more boiling to your batteries. So you want to have some airflow in between them. And you see up there all that writing on the wall. That's my maintenance schedule. So the last time I did any maintenance on these was July 16th. Okay, so we've already gone through August 16th, and September 16th. And I could go one more month, but we had some hot days here. So I will get out here this week and do maintenance on these. And when I do it this time, I will be cleaning all the terminals, and I'll be filling all of the units up with distilled water. And that little unit right there, that battery filler, is a real handy tool if you've got lead acid battery like I do. So you might want to pick one of those up at your automotive store. And the right reason it's so handy is the nozzle that comes out of it on that side. You just open up your battery and you just push it down on there, and it will put water in until the battery is full to the proper level, and then it will stop dispensing water automatically. So you don't have any guesswork on whether you got enough water in there. You don't have to try to get your head in between the shelving and the battery to see how much water is in. You just press it down. You put your hand on I like putting my hand on the top cover, and you can feel it gurgling as it's putting water in. When that stops, that cell of the battery is full. So that's all you have to do on that. So I covered battery maintenance and pure sine wave inverters in this one, and we're gonna close it off at that point. The only other thing I can say is the discoloration on the batteries. Well, I used to come out and clean that off with Windex and a scrubby pad and keep the batteries all nice and clean and white. You know, they didn't work any better that way. It just looks better. So the red one is one that I had to change because it went bad. And last thing I'll say on battery banks and inverters is one bad battery in the group will draw the whole group down to its level, not the other way around. The rest of them that are all strong batteries will not bring the weak battery up to their level. The weak battery will draw everything else down to that level. So every now and then, you take a battery tester like I've got there, and you test the fluid, which is the specific gravity in each battery. And if you find one that's below normal, plan on changing that battery out ASAP, because it's drawing the rest of your battery back down. And that's what I did when I found that one. It had one bad cell in it, and I had to go get another one. So you don't put a brand new battery in with used batteries either. So I have a place here called California Batteries where I can buy used or refurbished batteries, and I go in there and I get a decent deal on a battery. It's a lot cheaper than buying a new one, and a new one would just get dragged down to the level of the others anyway. So I can put in a used or refurbished battery, save myself some money and some hassle, and keep my battery bank healthy. All right, everybody. Oh yeah, one last thing. I've told you this before. That little thing down there against the wall is called a BLS, or a battery life saver. Now this one is for lead acid. It's a BLS -12 for lead acid batteries, and that will keep your batteries from sulfating. So my batteries in here are going on 9 years old now, and that battery lifesaver has really done a good job of protecting them. So you can buy those online. Anybody wants a link to it, just request it in the comment section below, and I'll be glad to send you a link to where you can buy one. Just let me know if you've got a 12 volt, 24 volt, 36 volt, or 48 volt system, so I can tell you which one to get. Now also remember, lead acid includes AGM batteries, or glass mat batteries. So if you do have AGM batteries which don't have caps on the top of them and don't require servicing, those require a separate BLS also. So Give me that information. The more information you give me, the more accurate I can be on referring you to the proper BLS apparatus. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me. This is G Bear reminding you, thumbs ups down there. Don't forget to share and subscribe. And I'm signing off.